Ethan Cole, a brilliant billionaire architect, had one unbreakable rule that everyone in his firm knew. He never touched women. No handshakes, no accidental brushes, nothing. For 20 years, no one had dared to challenge it. But on one fateful morning, Lily Carter, his newly hired personal assistant, walked into his life, bringing a completely different energy. She didn't know about his rule. She wasn't intimidated by his cold demeanor, and most importantly, she was about to break the unspoken law without even realizing it. The entire office buzzed with whispers as the new assistant entered, completely unaware that she was walking straight into a situation no one had dared to face before. But Lily was never one to back down from a challenge. What happens when Ethan Cole's untouchable rule is finally broken? That morning, the air inside Cole Architects was thick with tension. Employees whispered, exchanging glances, filled with curiosity and anticipation. All eyes were on Lily Carter. She walked in with a confident stride, completely unaware that she had already become the center of office gossip, and even more unaware that she was about to break the most important rule in the building. "The new assistant is here," one of the employees murmured. "Poor thing, does she even know?" "Doubt it, no one dares to tell her." The rule they were talking about was simple yet absolute. Ethan Cole never touched women. Not a handshake, not an accidental brush, nothing. Some thought it was just another billionaire eccentricity. Others believed it stemmed from some deep, untold trauma. But Lily, she didn't care for office rumors. At that moment, she was simply focused on her first assignment of the day. "Lily, get Mr. Cole a tie. He has a meeting in 10 minutes, Emma, the executive secretary, called out. Lily blinked. "A tie?" "Yes, quickly. There are plenty in his wardrobe. Just grab one and take it to him." A tie. Simple enough. What could possibly go wrong? She walked into the executive dressing room and opened the cabinet. But as soon as she saw what was inside, she froze. There were over 50 ties neatly arranged, each a different shade, pattern, or texture. Lily frowned. What kind of man owns this many ties, she mumbled to herself. She reached for a navy blue one, then hesitated and picked a black one, then a gray one. Then panic set in and she grabbed all of them. With her arms full, she marched toward Ethan Cole's office, determined to get this simple task done. She knocked. "Come in," a deep, authoritative voice answered. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. Ethan Cole stood by his desk, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt. With his perfectly tailored suit and his sharp, calculating gaze, he looked like a man who had already solved a multi-million-dollar problem before breakfast. He looked up at her, then at the pile of ties in her arms. His brow furrowed. "What is that?" "To ties," Lily said, stopping in front of him. "All of them?" "I didn't know which color you preferred, so I brought them all." Ethan stared at her for a long moment before letting out a slow exhale, as if summoning patience he did not have. "Give me one." Lily dumped the pile onto his desk and randomly selected one, handing it to him. Ethan arched an eyebrow. She glanced down at the tie she had just handed over and felt horror sink into her stomach. Tiny rubber ducks. "Oh, not that one." She yanked it back and grabbed another. "Here, navy blue." Ethan accepted it with a brief nod, task accomplished. Now all she had to do was turn around and walk away. But then she saw it. Ethan Cole was tying his tie the wrong way. Lily blinked, then blinked again. He was absolutely butchering the fabric as if he were attempting to strangle an invisible ghost. She couldn't hold it in. "Wait, stop. You're doing it all wrong," she said, stepping closer. "Here, let me..." And then she touched him. The moment her fingertips brushed against the skin of his neck, Ethan froze. Lily felt his entire body tense under her touch. The shift in the air was almost palpable, as if the temperature had suddenly dropped. Then, without warning... No. Ethan recoiled as if she had electrocuted him. Lily's eyes widened. Oh my God, what just happened? Ethan was staring at her like she had just launched an attack on his life. "You touched me." Lily frowned. "I was just fixing your tie." "Never do that again." His voice was tight, controlled, but there was something else in his expression. Not just anger, fear. Lily noticed how his hand instinctively reached for his neck, as if trying to erase the sensation of her touch. His breathing was uneven, his fists clenched, his usually sharp eyes clouded with something unreadable. "Relaxed, I'm not radioactive, you know." Ethan ran a hand over his neck, as if trying to erase the feeling of her touch. His breathing was uneven, his fists clenched. "You don't understand." Lily studied him for a moment. His reaction, it wasn't anger, it was fear. She sighed, raising her hands in surrender. "Fine, no touching, got it." Ethan's shoulders relaxed. "Just slightly. You can go." Lily rolled her eyes. "No touching, fine. But one day, I'm going to figure out what the hell you're so afraid of." She turned on her heel and walked out, completely unaware that she had just changed everything. The door clicked shut behind her. Ethan remained standing in place, his hand unconsciously moving to his neck, touching the exact spot where her fingers had been. His heart was still pounding. This had never happened before, but for some inexplicable reason, her touch was still there. And that terrified him. From that moment on, nothing was the same. Ethan Cole was a man of discipline. His life was built on strict rules, an unshakable structure that no one had dared to break. Until Lily Carter. She didn't do anything special. She simply existed in his space. And that was the problem. All day, Ethan tried to ignore the strange, unsettling feeling creeping into his mind. He threw himself into work, reviewing reports, approving designs, attending meetings, but no matter where he was, his thoughts kept circling back to the same person. Lily Carter. Ethan started noticing things about her. He shouldn't have, but he did. The way she bit her lip when she was focused. The way she absent-mindedly tapped her pen against her desk. The way she muttered under her breath while typing on her computer. And worse, he started looking for those things. Ethan had never paid attention to such insignificant details before, but now she was invading his thoughts in a way he couldn't control. And the worst part? He started looking for her. When he walked past the employee workstations, his eyes involuntarily found her desk. During meetings, he noticed how she twirled her bracelet around her wrist when she was deep in thought. When he passed by the office cafe, he saw her laughing with colleagues, and it irritated him more than it should. He hated this. Ethan Cole was not the kind of man who got distracted by anyone. But then, the worst moment of the day happened. He was reviewing a blueprint when he heard it. A laugh. A laugh that was far too familiar. He glanced up. Lily was laughing with James Parker, one of the firm's rising young architects. Ethan didn't understand why, but the uneasy feeling inside him tripled. James said something, Lily laughed again. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Why? He had no idea. But one thing was certain, this could not continue. Ethan Cole wasn't always like this. 16 years ago, he believed in love, he believed in trust. And he believed in Isabel Monroe. She was everything to him, or at least, that's what he had thought. Isabel was elegant, sharp-witted, and breathtakingly beautiful in a way that commanded attention. When they were together, Ethan had believed he had found his forever. He had loved her with everything he had, and that was exactly what destroyed him. Ethan could still remember the night his world collapsed. It had been raining. He had just secured his first major project, a moment that should have been celebrated. His heart had been full, eager to share the news with Isabel, to celebrate with her. But when he walked into her apartment, he wasn't the only man there. A man of greater power, greater wealth, and then came the words. Words that still haunted him. Ethan, you were never enough. She had said it so easily, without hesitation, without regret. He had stood there, rain-soaked and silent, as the woman he loved walked away without a second thought. And something inside him broke that night. He no longer believed in intimacy, he no longer believed in the warmth of touch. Because now he knew, touch could deceive, affection could be a trap. So he built his walls, he kept his distance. And for 20 years, it had never been a problem. Until Lily. Ethan Cole did not get jealous. He wasn't the kind of man who cared about trivial things. He didn't have time to dwell on nonsense like personal feelings. But all of that became irrelevant that evening. The charity gala on the rooftop of one of the city's most luxurious buildings was a mandatory event for Ethan. It was a place where top executives mingled, shook hands, and flaunted their wealth. And tonight, he had done something even he didn't expect. He asked Lily to go with him. He hadn't thought much about it at the time, he simply didn't want to bring anyone else. But the moment they walked in, he realized one thing. This was a mistake. Lily looked different. Gone was her usual office attire. Tonight, she wore a deep wine-red dress, elegant yet effortlessly stunning. Her hair, normally in a neat ponytail, cascaded in soft waves over her bare shoulders. And her smile, he couldn't stop looking. The problem was, neither could anyone else. Throughout the night, executives' gazes lingered on Lily, and then Nathan Carter appeared. Ethan knew him well. Nathan was a venture capitalist, smart, charming, and most importantly, he never missed an opportunity with a beautiful woman. Ethan watched from a distance as Nathan moved closer to Lily, talking, making her laugh. And then, it happened. Nathan placed his hand on her waist. There was no reason for Ethan to react. No reason for him to feel this sudden rush of anger. And yet, before he even thought about it, he was already on his feet, walking straight toward them. Lily was laughing when she suddenly felt a strong presence beside her. Before she could even turn, Ethan grabbed her wrist. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and sharp. Lily blinked. "Now? I'm in the middle of a conversation." Ethan didn't let her finish. Nathan raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Relax, Ethan, I wasn't trying to steal her from you." Lily's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" Ethan tightened his grip just slightly, but enough for her to feel the tension radiating off him. Without another word, he pulled her away, leaving Nathan standing alone with a knowing smirk. They reached a secluded corner of the rooftop. Lily yanked her hand free. "What the hell was that?" Ethan exhaled slowly. "He was touching you." Lily frowned. "And?" "It was just a casual touch." Ethan met her gaze. "I didn't like it." That was the truth, and he hated admitting it. Lily froze. Then, a slow, dangerous smile spread across her lips. Ethan glimmered. She stepped closer. "Are you jealous?" He swallowed hard. "No." Lily tilted her head. "Then why did you pull me away?" Ethan had no answer. Because even he didn't know why he did it. Ethan had no answer. Lily stared at him, as if trying to read his mind, and the truth was, even Ethan himself couldn't understand what he had just done. All he knew was one thing. Watching Nathan touch her had driven him insane. But he couldn't say that out loud. Instead, he turned away, trying to regain control. "Forget it," he said quickly. "It was just an impulsive reaction." Lily raised an eyebrow. "An impulsive reaction?" Ethan nodded, as if convincing himself. "It doesn't mean anything." Lily folded her arms, eyes locked on his. "Are you sure?" Ethan opened his mouth to reply, but then she stepped closer. Too close. She didn't touch him, but her presence was overwhelming. He could feel her breath as she whispered, "What if I did it again?" Before he could react, Lily reached out, lightly grasping the lapel of his suit, pulling him slightly closer. Every muscle in his body tensed. He should step back. He had to step back. But he didn't. Every rule he had followed for 20 years collapsed in 1 second. Before he could think, before he could stop himself, he kissed her. No hesitation, no logic, just instinct. Lily froze for a second. Then, she kissed him back. A soft touch, then deeper, like they were both testing if this was really happening. Ethan didn't know what he had expected, but what he hadn't expected was this feeling. It wasn't wrong. No discomfort, no fear, just her. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. That realization hit him like a shockwave. Panic set in. He pulled away like he had been burned. Lily's eyes fluttered open, breath uneven. "Ethan!" He took a step back, then another. No, this was a mistake. Lily froze. A mistake? Ethan clenched his fists, trying to ground himself. This shouldn't have happened. For a moment, Lily's expression went blank. Then, very slowly, she nodded. "So, that's how you want to play this?" Her voice was dangerously calm. Ethan couldn't meet her eyes. "We'll forget it happened." Lily let out a soft laugh, a laugh with no amusement. "You can pretend, Ethan. But I won't." And then she turned and walked away. Ethan stood there, watching her leave, feeling hollow. And for the first time in 20 years, he realized one truth. He was no longer in control. Ethan Cole had always been in control. But ever since that night, nothing had been under his control anymore. Lily avoided him. She wasn't angry. She didn't lash out. She didn't make a scene. She simply withdrew from his life. And that was what drove him insane. At the office, she still did her job. She sent emails, attended meetings, handed him reports. But never once did she meet his eyes. No teasing, no lingering glances, no warm smiles that had once been impossible to forget. Ethan thought that this would help him regain control. But it didn't, because now her silence was the one thing making him lose control the most. And then the worst moment arrived. That night, he was trying to focus on a high-stakes contract when Max Turner, head of finance and possibly the only person he could call a friend, walked in with a knowing smirk. "You might want to stop by the bar downtown." Ethan looked up, frowning. "Why the hell would I do that?" Max raised an eyebrow. "Because Lily's there? And, judging by what I saw, she doesn't seem too concerned about your no-touching rule tonight." The words hit him like a brick. Ethan didn't think. He just moved. 15 minutes later, he was at the bar. And just like Max had said, Lily was laughing. Not the polite kind of laugh she used in meetings. Not the teasing smirk she reserved for him. A real laugh. With another man. Ethan didn't know who he was. And he didn't care. Because in that moment, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't lose her. And he wouldn't let that happen. Ethan Cole was not a man who acted on impulse. But that night, he did the craziest thing he had ever done. He didn't think, he didn't strategize, he didn't plan every detail like he usually did. He only knew one thing. If he didn't act now, he would lose her forever. So he marched into the bar. Lily saw him instantly. She blinked, clearly surprised to see him there, but instead of looking flustered, she turned back to her conversation, acting as if he didn't exist. Ethan clenched his jaw. He couldn't take this. Before he could stop himself, he walked straight to her table. "Can we talk?" His voice was low and firm. Lily leaned back, crossing her arms. "Now? I'm busy." "Lily," Ethan gritted his teeth, "just 5 minutes." She held his gaze for a long moment. Then, with an exasperated sigh, she stood up. "Fine." He pulled her outside, away from the noise, onto a quiet street corner. Lily folded her arms, staring at him challengingly. "Go on, Ethan. Say whatever it is you dragged me out here for." Ethan took a deep breath. Then, for the first time in his life, he said the one thing he had been too afraid to admit. "I love you." Lily froze. She blinked, as if she hadn't heard him right. "What did you just say?" Ethan met her eyes. "I love you, Lily." No hesitation, no running. Just the truth. Lily was silent for a moment. Then she laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "You love me?" She shook her head, letting out a bitter chuckle. "Great timing, Ethan." His chest tightened. She sighed. "I waited so long to hear that. But now? I don't know if I even want to anymore." Ethan knew that if he let her walk away now, she would be gone forever. And he couldn't let that happen. For a split second, he hesitated. Then, before fear could stop him, he dropped to one knee. Lily's eyes widened. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing?" But he didn't let her stop him. He pulled a small box from his pocket, flipped it open, and inside a diamond ring sparkled under the city lights. "Marry me, Lily." His voice was steady, sincere. "I know I made mistakes. I was afraid, but I don't want to run anymore." The world seemed to stand still. Lily stared at him, emotions swirling in her eyes. Then slowly, she smiled. "You really are impossible, Ethan Cole." Ethan stayed on his knee, his heart pounding. Lily glanced down at the ring, then back at him. And after a long, breathless pause, she nodded. "All right." Ethan didn't waste a second. He shot up, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her right there on the street. But the moment her hands clutched his shirt, pulling him closer, he panicked. This was too much, too real, too dangerous. And this time, he knew he would never let her go again.